Did you know that over 60% of people will experience some kind of foot issue in their lifetime, ranging from athlete's foot and fungal infections to calluses and persistent odor? It's astonishing how much we depend on our feet every day, yet often overlook their care until a problem arises. Now, here's a question for you. Have you ever thought about using hydrogen peroxide as a remedy for foot care? While this common household disinfectant is famous for cleaning wounds and whitening teeth, its potential uses for foot health are less widely discussed. That's what prompted my curiosity and launched me into a home experiment whose results I never expected. Hydrogen peroxide, found in most medicine cabinets in its familiar brown bottle, is generally known for its bubbling action when poured over a scrape. But it's much more than just a wound cleanser. In fact, it's scientifically classified as a mild antiseptic and oxidizer with impressive antibacterial and antifungal properties. So, when I started reading about alternative methods for at-home foot care, hydrogen peroxide kept appearing as a recommended solution. Let's talk for a minute about why people search for foot remedies in the first place. Our feet go through a lot: walking, running, standing for hours on end. Closed shoes can create a damp, warm environment that's perfect for fungi and bacteria to thrive. Problems like athlete's foot, toenail fungus, cracked heels, and strong odors are surprisingly common and can be as uncomfortable as they are embarrassing. Many people also struggle with dry feet, calluses, and even minor cuts or blisters. Foot hygiene is essential, not only for comfort but for overall health, since infections that start small can sometimes spread or worsen without proper care. Like anyone who's ever felt self-conscious about taking their shoes off at someone else's home, I've always appreciated the value of good foot hygiene. Yet, despite careful washing, moisturizing, and even trying out specialized foot creams, I noticed persistent dryness and an occasional faint odor that seemed resistant to standard products. That's when I began digging deeper online and came across dozens of stories and tips about hydrogen peroxide foot soaks. The testimonials ranged from "miracle cure" to "be careful, this stuff is strong." I decided it was time to look at the science and try it for myself. Before starting, I wanted to be sure I understood the risks and best practices. According to dermatologists, hydrogen peroxide should always be diluted before use on skin. Typically, about 3% hydrogen peroxide, mixed with enough warm water to make it gentle. High concentrations, or using the solution undiluted, can cause irritation, burning, or excessive dryness. That was important. I gathered my materials, filled a basin with warm water, added a standardized 3% hydrogen peroxide at a safe ratio, and took the plunge. Almost immediately after soaking my feet, I noticed that familiar fizzy sensation as tiny bubbles formed around my toes and nails. It felt similar to using a medicated foot soak, but there was a sterile, almost clinical cleanliness to it. I set a timer for 15 minutes, occasionally watching the bubbles pop and swirl, and wondered if I'd be left with red, dry skin, or if there'd be any noticeable improvement. The real surprise came after drying my feet. First, the stubborn dryness across my heels and the rough patches on my soles felt noticeably softer, even before I applied my usual moisturizer. The skin seemed smoother to the touch, and the whitish appearance that sometimes lingered after a long day in shoes was gone. Over the next few days, I noticed an even more significant change. The odor I'd been struggling with was almost entirely eliminated. Even after hours in socks and sneakers, my feet felt fresher than they had in a long time. To further test the results, I repeated the soak every other day for a week. Each time, the sensation was the same: refreshing and deep cleaning without causing irritation. I also paid close attention to potential drawbacks. My biggest concern was excessive dryness, so I made sure to liberally moisturize after each treatment. I also checked for any signs of redness or discomfort, but thankfully, none appeared. In fact, my feet continued to improve in texture and appearance. Even the yellowish tinge on one toenail, possibly early-stage fungus, seemed to lighten slightly after a few soaks, which was an unexpected bonus. So, what's actually happening here? Hydrogen peroxide releases oxygen when it contacts organic material, killing bacteria and fungi that can cause infection or odor. It also helps to soften calluses and dead skin, making exfoliation easier after soaking. This combination appears to explain the immediate freshness and smoothness I experienced. However, there are some important caveats. For anyone considering this remedy, hydrogen peroxide can be harsh if used too frequently, or if you have cuts, sensitive skin, or certain conditions like eczema. Always dilute the solution and do a patch test if you're prone to allergies. Those with diabetes or compromised immune systems should consult a doctor before trying new foot treatments, as even minor irritation can lead to complications. Recapping my experience, I have to say that using hydrogen peroxide soaks was more effective than I anticipated. The key benefits for me were noticeably softer skin, reduced foot odor, and a fresher feeling that lasted well beyond the initial soak. It was a simple, inexpensive home remedy that made a tangible difference, and I can understand why so many people turn to it for occasional foot care. Yet, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Moderation and proper aftercare, like moisturizing, are essential to prevent the skin from becoming overly dry. If you're considering adding hydrogen peroxide to your foot care routine, remember these takeaways. Always dilute the solution, don't overuse it, moisturize well afterward, and pay attention to how your skin responds. Just as important, don't hesitate to seek medical advice if you're dealing with persistent or serious foot issues. Sometimes, home remedies are only part of the answer. In the end, what shocked me most was not just the results, but how much of a difference a simple, overlooked product could make when used correctly. Sometimes, a small change to our daily routine, one that's backed by science and common-sense precautions, can have a surprisingly big impact on our health and confidence. So next time you look down at your feet and wonder if they could use some extra care, remember, the solution might be just around the corner in your bathroom cabinet.